Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all the return of Comic Book Hollywood right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Comic Book Hollywood movie review. Before I jump into this week's video, I want to go ahead and remind you all to pledge to my comic book miniseries Totems on Kickstarter.com. Link will be annotated here. You can just click on the annotation and it will lead you straight to the page where you can pledge. Now, let's go ahead and let's jump into this week's Comic Book Hollywood review. Man, it's been a while since I've done Comic Book Hollywood, but the last movie that you all voted for me to review was none other than Zack Snyder's 300. So, let's go ahead, let's jump into this review. Now, 300 is a 2007 American action film based on the 1998 comic series of the same name by Frank Miller. It is a fictionalized retelling of the Battle of Thermopylae. The film was directed by Zack Snyder, while Miller served as executive producer and consultant. It was filmed mostly with a superimposition chroma key technique to help replicate the imagery of the original comic book. Alright, so that's pretty much brief background information on the film. Now let's do a brief summary of the plot. The plot revolves around King Leonidas, who leads 300 Spartans into the battle against Persian god King Xerxes and his army of more than 1 million soldiers. As the battle rages, Queen Gorgo attempts to rally support in Sparta for her husband. The story is framed by a voiceover narrative by the Spartan soldier Dilios. Through his narrative technique, various fantastical creatures are introduced, placing 300 within the genre of historical fantasy. Now, okay, so now that the brief information and the brief summary of the plot have been out of the way, let's talk about the writing. Yeah, let's talk about the writing. Now, the writing for 300, more or less, is actually rather faithful to the source material. Zack Snyder, who has pretty much garnered a reputation of being very faithful to source material with his various adaptations, and I think 300, I would go as far as to say 300 was pretty much the first Zack Snyder's real, claim to fame as far as adaptations are concerned. In my opinion, because I know he did what was it, Dawn of the Dead, which was like a remake. But anywho, but with Zack Snyder's direction, and then of course, the screenplay was written by Zack Snyder, Kurt Johnston, and Michael B. Gordon. What I think they did a good job at doing was they pretty much took the source material and then they made some necessary changes in order to convert it to film, which is the good mark of an adaptation. And then they kind of splashed it on top, with Zack's little pizzazz, if you will, his little spice, his little flavor, kind of splashed it on top, and that topped it all off. I think that as far as when you're talking about the pacing of the film, in comparison with like the pacing of the source material, in making those necessary changes to make a good film, I think the pacing is on point. I think the tempo is on point. It slows down when it needs to, speeds up when it needs to, give exposition when it needs to, shines spotlights, on specific characters, giving, each character its own little spotlight when it needs to. And I think all of that correlates to a well formatted adaptation. So let's talk about the acting and likewise the dialogue as it correlates with each character. I thought for the most part the acting was good for this story and for this film for the most part. Of course, Gerard Butler stole the show. I would say that the three that stole the show in this film would be Gerard Butler, Lena Headey. Oh, I said Headey. Headley, Hedy, however the fuck you pronounce it. And David Wenham. I think those three kind of stole the show, as it were. I think their dialogue was particularly good, especially David Wenham and his narration. As I mentioned earlier, his narration was very good. I love the somewhat poetic spin it had. I really thought that was really well done. And another thing, I think that the style of the narration kind of reinforces the fact that what you are seeing is, it's a story. You are literally being told the story. You're seeing it through the eyes of the storyteller, and I think that kind of help reinforces that theme. Let me see. Oh, another one I do want to mention, though. I do want to go ahead and mention Rodrigo Santoro, his portrayal of Xerxes. While I felt like his portrayal of Xerxes wasn't necessarily on par with the previously three performances I mentioned, but his dialogue was real good. I thought his dialogue was well written. So kind of a trade-off with Xerxes in this film. Let me see what else. And I guess since leaving the acting and making a final note on the writing, I do want to talk about the depiction of the Battle of Thermopylae, because as I stated earlier when I was talking about the plot, this is historical fantasy. It's historical fiction. It is a fantastical retelling of a historical event. And of course, Frank Miller, in his original source material, took creative liberties with how he depicted the Persians. For one, I know there was a lot of controversy about how the Persians were depicted, which I thought was just ridiculous, because that controversy only came to the forefront when the film came out. I mean, this movie came out 9 years after the comic book came out, after the graphic novel came out. So, why didn't everybody raise hell back then? Why? Because it was a comic book and no one gave a shit? Oh, once they made a movie about it, though, everyone wanted to get all crazy about it. But keep in mind, that's not to say that I'm being insensitive to the plight of those who did have a problem with the Persians' depiction, because a lot of them do make very strong cases. The point I'm trying to make is this, though. Keep in mind, let's keep in mind the framework of what we're talking about. It's historical fantasy. It's historical fiction. It's not meant to be taken literally. Hell, Frank Miller said that on multiple occasions. And then, of course, if nothing else, it's Frank Miller. Come on, Frank does this shit all the time. So, am I saying that puts him in the right? No. What I'm saying is, be aware of what you're getting yourself into, going into whether you're tackling the source material or whether you're watching this movie. It's historical fantasy, and it's Frank Miller. I'm not saying that Frank was right. I'm not saying that Frank was wrong. I'm saying keep in mind what you're getting yourself into, because Frank does this shit. So that'll pretty much wrap up the writing segment. Let's talk about cinematography. This film was one of the first that really pushed the envelope as far as like doing an entire film in green screen. Not many films prior to 300 actually did that, where all they had was the actors, the costumes, and then everything else was done in green screen. But of course, that wasn't done out of laziness. That was done out of practicality, and that was done out of artistic execution. The thing with Zack Snyder, as I mentioned before, Zack likes to get as close to the source material visually as possible. And the reason why Zack shot that in the way that he did was so he can actually emulate Frank Miller's, he can actually emulate the visual style of the comic book. And I think that works especially well, especially if you guys watch any of the behind the scenes footage on the DVD. there are multiple scenes throughout the entire film that are panel for panel like it was in the source material, straight from it. And then Zack Snyder would go ahead and he'd repeat this when he did Watchmen. Granted, he didn't do everything in green screen with Watchmen, because they actually did have like sets and whatnot, but a lot of it he did in green screen to do the same thing. So when we're talking about the cinematography, me personally, I think the cinematography is beautiful. I think it really does capture what Frank went for in the source material. I think it creates that fantastical atmosphere. Even when you're talking about like the battles and the gore and stuff like that, I think it all adds to the atmosphere. It all adds to the experience, to the story being told. Another thing I'll mention, because many of you all who do follow my videos, you'll probably remember all of my past statements and my stance on like gratuitous violence and nudity in entertainment, because more often than not, I don't like that shit. Unless of course it contributes to the story, unless of course it has something to do with the story. 300 is one of the few rare examples of that, where the gratuitous violence did have, it played a part, it played a role in the story. It was a necessity. So that's my thought on that. As far as the effects, I thought the effects were really good. The visual effects, but then again, like I said, the visual effects. This is where Zack puts his little spice on things. And some of it's a hit or miss. To use an example of what I'm talking about, like the wolf. The wolf in the film, I like and then I dislike. And it's really weird to explain. I like how Zack brought it to life, but then I don't like somewhat the way it looks. But then again, that's because that's how it looks in Frank Miller's book. That big, hulky, unnatural looking wolf with them fucking bloodshot eyes. I like it, but then I don't like it. I don't know. It's a fucked up relationship. I know. It's weird. Visually, it's stimulating, but then it's kind of repulsive. But then it's like, that's badass. But then it's like, what the fuck? I don't know. It's weird. But that the elephant caravans. The scene with the magic, with the fireworks and the gunpowder effects, I thought was really good. Let me see, is there another one? Oh yeah, the scene with the oracle. I thought, with the slow motion technique used in the depiction of that scene, I thought was really good. So yeah, those are my thoughts on like the cinematography, the effects, the music. Who does the music for this film? The music was by Tyler Bates. I thought the music was good. I thought for this film, I thought the music was good. Now, in comparison with other films of this genre, would I compare the music to, say, Gladiator or Troy? No. But it was good enough for what it was. That's my 15-minute marker. And so, likes and dislikes about the film. Anything that I haven't already tackled. Let me see. Likes and dislikes. Okay, likes. I especially like the choreography. Thought it was really good, especially the tag team fight scene with Michael Fassbender and who was the other actor? Tom Wisdom. I thought that's my favorite fight scene in the film is that fight scene. So yeah, I thought the choreography was really good. Let me see. Is there anything else I liked? that I haven't mentioned yet in this review. No, I think I tackled all my likes. Dislikes about the film. Let me see. That I haven't already addressed in the review. Anything I disliked? No, that was it. Yeah, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover in this review. So with that being said, let's wrap this up with my rating. My rating of 300. I would give 300. This is a toughie. Out of 5 stars, let's see, 5 being an A, 4 being a B, 3 being a C, I would give 300 a 3.75. Or, yeah, a 3.75. That's like a B minus. Yeah, I'd give 300 a B minus. I think I might, maybe I'm being too great. I don't know. I'd give 300 a 3.75. That's like a B minus. And my reason for this is because I think this film is of particular taste. I think for those of you all who like historical fantasy and who like historical fiction, you'll dig 300. I think for anyone who likes, period pieces, you'll dig 300. Anyone who likes action-packed films, I think you'll dig 300. But I do recognize that the gratuitous violence can turn a lot of people off. I think that the nudity may throw some people off. I think that turn some people off. I think that the focus on the action scenes might entice the casual viewer, but to some people who actually want more, I think at times the story and the dialogue does get overshadowed by the action. And like I said, if you're going in there thinking this is Gladiator, or if you're going in there thinking this is Troy, you might be disappointed. I recognize that. I think that while I do like the CGI in the film, the lack of set designs kind of harbors on the actors acting. You don't get that genuine reaction from them. And so all those things, like I said, I think would correlate in a B minus grading. So like a 3.75. So that's going to do it for my my review of 300. I know I'm a bit rusty. I know this video might come out kind of but in the comments below, guys, nominate suggestions for next week's Comic Book Hollywood movie review, and as always, thumb up the ones you want to see. And I'll wrap this video up with Smallville Season 1 review will be coming out tomorrow. And don't forget to pledge to my comic book miniseries Totems on Kickstarter.com. Once again, link is in the annotation above. And that'll do it for me. This has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off. And until next week, peace.